Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. It is time for the Week 13 Fantasy Football Rankings. My name is Steve, and you can find these rankings up on the website, www.theffforge.com. By the way, I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. We're going to try to do a little bit quicker videos this week, get in and out. I know it's a busy week for everyone, so that is the case. You can see some of my waiver wire thoughts at the end of the wide receivers video. If you did not catch that, wide receivers video came out yesterday. And this evening, the quarterbacks and the tight ends video will come out. Everything's coming out about 12 hours earlier than normal because of Thanksgiving. When I will be live here Thanksgiving morning for any of your start-sit questions prior to the 3-game slate on Thanksgiving. So come in, say hi, say happy Thanksgiving. Just stop on in, and then leave as quickly as you need to. And I will also be available as always on Sunday morning, 3 hours prior to kickoff. I'm not exactly sure for Thanksgiving morning what my schedule will end up looking like. That there are factors that may impact how early I get on here and how late I can stay. But the plan would be to be here for at least like 2 hours, if not more, or probably not too much less. So we're going to go through how I did with my loves, my fades last week, who my loves and my fades are this week when we go through the rankings. Before that, we're going to just quick cover some injuries and some interesting running back usage. Injury information, we've got New England and Minnesota. Both of those teams lost a couple of offensive linemen, so there are some concerns for those rushing attacks going forward without some of their starting offensive linemen that we just maybe want to keep in mind, although I don't know how much it truly ended up impacting the rankings this week, but maybe just keep that in mind for yourself at least. And then Alvin Kamara had a knee injury. It doesn't look fantastic by the time this comes out. I'm sure we'll know more on that, but for now, not ranking him. When we get to the interesting usage information, I go through JJ Zachariason's data dump that he does every Monday morning, and I bring you guys the information that I think matters most going forward. So, let's get through that. Breece Hall is had his highest target share since week 4. I did call this out last week as hopefully that's what we were going to see for him with Justin Fields not being that quarterback anymore, and that was the case. So I would anticipate that to maybe be a little bit true going forward. Derrick Henry has seen a consistent, slight, but still consistent increase over the last 4 weeks in the receiving game usage, so that helps that floor for him. Ken Gainwell outsnapped Jaylen Warren 37-36. I'm not exactly sure what to think of this, and we will look at a couple of these situations. I'm going to try to show you their opportunities last week, because sometimes the opportunities don't quite match the snap shares, and they were still consistent with, the fact that they still got more rushing attempts and pass attempts than the other guy, even if they were outsnapped by them. So we'll look at those, because I'm also curious about, just want to compare them one more time with, might alter the rankings a little bit if it's closer than I thought or something like that. Kyle Manangai actually outsnapped DeAndre Swift, 35 snaps to 29 snaps. I don't know fully what to think of that, but obviously there is some concern there, and I didn't really realize that when I made my rankings here, so there might have to be a little alteration between both of their rankings. We'll see once again what their opportunities looked like. Henderson had, Travion Henderson, looking at New England's backfield, had 46 snaps versus Stevenson's 22 snaps, so that was, of course, very promising early on in the week, not what I had anticipated, but by the end of the week, I did end up fixing my rankings and had Henderson ranked much higher and Stevenson a little bit lower, so I did catch on to that. I just sometimes I'm a little conservative early in the week. I want to hear what coaches do or do not say, and they weren't really talking anymore like they had been the previous week about Stevenson coming back, so the signs seemed to point towards Henderson getting that usage, and he did. Tyrone Tracy and Singletary's usage continues to yo-yo week by week. I think it has been every other week that one of them has outsnapped the other one. This week, Tracy outsnapped Singletary. So, tough to make too much of that. Tyrone Tracy's still going to be the favorite of the two, just going forward for now. Ken Walker played 2 times more snaps than Zach Charbonnet did. That's the 4th straight week in a row. We've been monitoring this the whole time, and the team had said a couple of times now we're going to get Ken Walker a little bit more usage, and they keep following through with it more and more. So that is promising in a week this week where, start your Ken Walkers, I think. Ashton Genty's target share is saving his butt. Not doing too much, not doing too well on the ground, but over the last 3 weeks, he's been averaging a 20% target share, so that has been fantastic, keeping him alive. Travis Etienne played 40 snaps Bashal Tutin played 13. This is where my conservativeness ended up paying off very nicely. I tried warning you guys not to buy into Bashal Tutin's previous weekly usage because there were several factors that might have led to that. I wasn't 100% sure. I moved ETN down a little bit in my rankings, and I had Bashal Tutin raised a little bit in my rankings, but I didn't go crazy with it like a lot of experts were going absolutely nuts. Bashal Tutin seems to hold a spell on some people, and they are just trying to wish cast it to come true, and that was one of those cases where I felt like that was fantasy misconduct with how high people were touting him. Some people were touting him last week. And then Rachaad White outsnapped Tucker 40-26, roughly, I think it was. I closed my app before I wasn't going to include that, but then I figured, you know what, we don't know for sure. I am currently ranking it as if Bucky Irving plays this week. That is the expectation, but just in case he doesn't, that is something good to know. Sean Tucker did not end up taking that lead back role from Rachaad White there. Last week for my loves and my fades, I loved Emmanuel Wilson. That works out well. And I loved Zach Charbonnet. I still had him ranked fairly low, but I specifically said that we were touchdown hunting with Zach Charbonnet. He gets the touchdown, so he came through as I had anticipated. Maybe wanted a little bit more outside of that, but, you know, we'll call that pretty good. But I faded Ashton Jeanty and Tony Pollard, so I think we got 3 out of 4 there. Ashton Jeanty ends up having another good week. So, and I'm going to be lower on him again this week, and, you know, that's, we'll see how that ends up going out, working out. So that's going to bring us on to this week's rankings here for the running backs. We've got Achane, McCaffrey, Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, Jahmyr Gibbs here in the top 5, your must starts. I think it's pretty clear at this point, this is probably going to be their top 5. So that's where I kind of made the cutoff, because then we start to get into a little area of some questions, and I ended up breaking this next tier into 2 because I couldn't find really where to break it, so I broke it off with these 4 next up. James Cook, Derrick Henry, Kyren Williams, Saquon Barkley, all next up. By the way, guys, please don't forget to like the video. It really, really helps a lot. And I already said when I would be doing some of my live streams this week, so that's it. You can find these rankings up on the website, www.theff4.com. There should be links in the description if I didn't say that. Over here on the right-hand side, you are just seeing the Vegas spread and the implied point total. These are all just data points to help guide the rankings, but they don't make the ultimate decision on where the rankings are. But these, you know, these give us a good idea of the touchdown upside and the game flow. Is it working in favor of the passing game or the rushing attack, according to what Vegas thinks will happen? And we don't always have to agree with what Vegas thinks will happen, because obviously it doesn't always work out like this anyways. Over here on the left-hand side, we got our fantasy points column. This is on a scale of 0 to 36. This is based on average fantasy points per week. I do try to make this representative of everything going forward, so I do cherry pick certain games or situations, like, you know, once a running back takes over a backfield, then let's get rid of that information when they had been the backup or not even, you know, hardly playing at all, and all of a sudden they're the starter. So it does get a little bit cherry picked, but it is for the best that we do that. And the fantasy points column, there is a biased towards consistency, so that's why it's on a scale of 0 to 36. And then this is the opportunities column. This is targets count for 2 opportunities and rushing attempts count for 1 opportunities here in half PPR scoring. That is the system that I have, so now you understand that. So like I said, we will look at some of the opportunities from last week with some of those the Pittsburgh backfield and the Chicago backfield, at least. I want to check those 2 out when we get to them. But yeah, this is the next tier. We're going to play these guys. You know, there's more questions with this group than this group, but we've got some good matchups going on for these guys overall. And James Cook is not as much of a good matchup as he's just been that good. So despite the matchup, we're still going to be playing him. Almost certainly, that's going to bring us on to this next tier where, okay, we can start to make some start-sit decisions. We can start to maybe sit a guy in this tier because we don't like them this week for somebody else. You know, unless you're just sitting really, really pretty in your running back room. But Josh Jacobs, I'm going to have at the top of this tier. He's just been that good on the season. I expect this Green Bay offense to be able to get into these scoring opportunities, so I still feel pretty good about him in a bad matchup, though. It is a bad matchup. Travis Etienne in a good matchup against Tennessee seems to, once again, have that backfield, not all to himself, but you know what I mean, the main guy in that backfield, and there shouldn't be much reason why that would flip in this game outside outside of some sort of injury type of situation. So coming into it, I feel really good about Travis Etienne. Javonte Williams, rougher matchup. He has been pretty much that good on the season. The touchdowns haven't been coming as of late, but I wouldn't count out any kind of touchdowns here, even in, once again, a not great matchup against Kansas City. Then we've got TreVeyon Henderson up here. Offensive line, a little bit concerned about how that might impact things. I also could see, that running back workload, it could be a little bit closer for whatever reason this upcoming week. So I don't have 100% confidence in TreVeyon Henderson just completely dominating this backfield, but also once again, a good matchup against the New York Giants. We're going to give him another shot. It didn't end up being so pretty last week, but we do like that. Now we kind of know he is the 1A going forward, at least. So in a good matchup, we're going to play him. I have some concerns about it, but, not too many. Chase Brown, I have right behind that. I do have my concerns about this. Joe Burrow's back, so hopefully that'll be a good thing. He is a slow starter, though, so, maybe there'll be some rust that still needs to be knocked off of his shoulders. But after this, I have some guys coming back from injury, so I would generally like Bucky Irving, Omarion Hampton more than Chase Brown. However, with some uncertainty as to what their usage might look like coming back from injury, if they come back this week, maybe they don't come back at all, but I'm currently ranking them as if they do, then so I guess if we get some sort of report that, hey, they're good to go, which I kind of anticipate they are, and they're going to, reclaim their backfields completely, then I would move them up ahead of Chase Brown. But otherwise, that's how I have him ranked currently. Ken Walker here next up, going up against Minnesota, so he is a love of the week here for me for running back. We have seen them dedicate themselves to making him the guy now going forward, and Minnesota is a run funnel, so expect plenty of opportunities here in a game where we also expect them to win. Max Burrow's more on the other side, so they should be able to run plenty. I'm feeling pretty darn confident about Ken Walker this week. I say get him into your lineups one way or the other. And then I've got Rico Dowdle right behind that. I am going to fade him. He has been, obviously very good on the season, not so much as of late, and it is a terrible match against Los Angeles Rams. So I am fading Rico Dowdle. I still have him at the bottom of this tier, but just barely. And, I would be okay sitting him for someone in this next tier. Sometimes that's how these fades work. And just saying, I would be okay with it. It's not how I have it ranked, at least not right now. I might end up getting a little bit more bold on any number of these guys really in this next tier, because I might be a little bit too low on this next tier in general. However, I'm probably not going to be the low guy on RJ Harvey. I am loving him this week. He is a speedster going up against this old, slow defense of the Washington Commanders. And it's a good implied point total. Vegas thinks that they should be able to hold a lead against Washington pretty easily. I tend to agree. I know it wasn't great last time out. I was warning you about it last time out. It wasn't as high as the experts. This week, I'm going to be high on him. I'm starting him with a certain level of confidence in this game. There is just some risk to that usage, though, in general, compared to the guys that I have in the tier above him. Then Quinshon Judkins, it has been disappointing. The touchdown upside isn't fantastic. He comes through with 2 touchdowns last week, gets set up with those a little bit by the defense. Now, maybe he'll get set up with those again after Brock Purdy throws 3 picks this last week against Carolina. Maybe Cleveland gets another 3 picks too and sets Quinshon up for another 2 touchdowns, and he doesn't do much on the ground. But it's been really inefficient on the ground, and so he's really touchdown reliant. Then we've got Ashton Jeanty, it's been terrible on the ground. He's been really receiving game reliant, and that has been coming pretty consistently as of late. There will be a new offensive coordinator coming. Things will change with that offense too, so there is some uncertainty there. In a really bad matchup, I think they have the lowest implied point total on the week, so I'm not loving the touchdown upside for that. But obviously, play worthy. Same with Breece Hall here, and it's nice to see that he did end up getting more targets with the quarterback change there. It's not the worst matchup in the world, so I'm comfortable playing these tier of guys, but Just not quite as comfortable as the tier above them. And once again, I might be a little bit low on some of them. Jaylen Warren, this is one of the backfields we want to look at that usage, but going up against Buffalo, it's a really good matchup. So last week for his opportunities, Jaylen Warren still had like 18, which is, just a little bit less than what he's been getting on the season. Nothing too crazy there. Whereas when we look at Ken Gainwell, yeah, he did have 22 opportunities. So, man, we're going to have to do, what would you guys do with those rankings? Do you put Ken Gainwell ahead of Warren? I mean, I don't think so. But do we lower Jaylen Warren and raise up Ken Gainwell? Just bring up Ken Gainwell all the way up? Just pretty much play him as like running back 24 there? What do you think? I'm really curious. Please give me some of your input on that. I'm going to have to look at those two a little bit closer. I'm going to have to look at that game flow, look at the game log, and just kind of see if there's any reason why I'm not buying it, or if I am buying it going forward, I think is what we're going to need to do there. Trey Benson here at running back 24 in this next tier. So far we've got our must starts, our still gonna starts, our high-end running back starts, our less high-end running back starts, and now we're into our running back to low-end RB2 to high-end flex options in this tier. I am ranking Trey Benson. Once again, no guarantee that he plays this week, but assuming that he does, this is about where I would start him up ahead of DeAndre Swift. This is another backfield we wanted to look at. I went a little too early. So for DeAndre Swift, gets only 10 opportunities last week, and I'm pretty sure it's not a whole lot different from Manangai, but he does get 12 opportunities. Very interesting. I'm not fully buying into that, but also a game log I'm going to have to look a little bit closer on, see what other people's opinions on it are. Obviously, I'm not afraid to think that other people's opinions are wrong, like Bashal Tootin last week, but not a great matchup. Maybe a little too high on DeAndre Swift. Once again, feel free to put your input in the comments. I always do appreciate that. Should we get DeAndre Swift a little lower? Woody Marks, maybe, at this point, looking at that, yeah, maybe we feel a little bit safer about Woody Marks in what is probably a little bit better of a matchup. Although, I don't have great expectations for this game. It could be a tight-knit game. Then we've got Aaron Jones going up against Seattle. It's a really, really bad running back matchup. And Devin Neal here might be buried a little bit. I almost want to put Devin Neal, up higher in the rankings. There is a little bit of a threat to that based on how they use not Juwan Johnson, but I just had his name. That tight end that is really a quarterback and a running back more than a tight end. They used him quite a bit last week, so does he get more usage again? Nonetheless, going up against Miami, it is a really good running back matchup here for Devin Neal. So he is someone who, if I hadn't already used up my two loves of the week, would definitely be in that love of the week tier for Devin Neal, but there are some concerns about how much we can trust that, assuming he is the starter this week, assuming Kamara does not come back. And then Kareem Hunt, I had to move. He was at the top of this tier, but Isaiah Pacheco, it is being said that Isaiah Pacheco will be playing this week. So I'm going to fade Kareem Hunt just because I have him lower than the experts, at least at this point in the week. Maybe that news, maybe once that comes through, the experts will equal out. But, for the most part, when it's been those two on the field, it's been more of a split than not. I don't think that quite happened the last time they were both on the field, but there are reasons for that. You do like the touchdown upside, but that floor is a little bit creaky with Isaiah Pacheco coming back. Some concerns about that floor, so that's why I just pushed him down to the bottom of this tier instead. Once again, I think we're still in that fine territory for these guys as starters. And then we're moving into pure flex territory here with Zach Charbonnet going up against Minnesota once again, anticipating Seattle to have a lot of running. We're chasing that touchdown this week, and I think even more so this week, maybe we can get some more rushing opportunities overall, and that should boost up that floor as well for Charbonnet. So I think he's a fine play this week. once again, it's rickety. It could always just be really bad in terms of that floor. Tyrone Tracy, right to have that. It does have a better floor. Don't love the touchdown upside, the ceiling as much in a really bad running back matchup against New England, though. Ken Gainwell, we kind of covered that. Probably going to have to move him up in the rankings here based on what happened last week, unless I can find an excuse for why that wouldn't be the case. Just off the top of my head, Jaylen Warren's coming back from injury. But the team did say they were going to get Ken Gainwell a little bit more involved, if I remember correctly, too, before the game. So, I don't know. I don't know exactly what to do with that yet. David Montgomery going to be behind that. We've seen him in even promising matchups. Sometimes we've gotten a little bit lucky. The usage, it just hasn't been fantastic. Neither has the production. So, in a really bad running back matchup against Green Bay, the touchdown upside's there, but it just hasn't worked out this season like it has in previous. I'm not too optimistic about it anymore for David Montgomery, once again, especially this week in a bad matchup. Ramondre Stevenson, really good matchup. Could see him coming through and having a decent week. Wouldn't be too surprised by that. Tony Pollard, not a good running back matchup. Really not a good matchup. The scoring upside, as always, is not great. But there is a floor for Tony Pollard. He just has gotten a floor amount of opportunities and workload. I have adjusted, I believe, these opportunities for Pollard. Yes, to match when it's been Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears there, you can see. So those numbers are adjusted. And so that is, his opportunities in a shared backfield type of situation. And as you can see, it is, outside of Tyrone Tracy, the highest in this tier. So once again, that floor for Tony Pollard is there if you just need a floor in your RB2 or your flex spot there. Chris Rodriguez, similar situation. I'd say slightly less trustworthy than Tony Pollard there in terms of the usage opportunities at least. But a very similar play to Tony Pollard and Isaiah Pacheco, a little bit less so than them, even more concern about the opportunities for him, but the touchdown upside a little bit higher for him, although that's really been Kareem Hunt's thing throughout the season, so not overly excited about that either, but he does eke into this tier, and then we get into our lesser, almost desperation, but still in that flex possible opportunity way, although in a week where everybody's playing, hopefully you're not having to play these guys. Tyler Algier, Devin Singletary, Kyle Manangai might have to push him up the rankings a little bit, but I'm still not going to love him this week. Tyjae Spears, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Bashal Tutin are two guys who I could see easily ranking at the top of this tier. I won't be against them. These are the first two where I actually get a little bit optimistic. The team has said that Jaleel McLaughlin is going to be a part of this. It's not going to be all RJ Harvey, just as we saw 2 weeks ago when they got their first opportunity together in that backfield. So Jaleel McLaughlin against Washington, definitely an opportunity for a day that is surprisingly good, whatever that might be. 9 fantasy points, 12 with a little bit of luck, could come through for you, maybe more. And Bashal Tutin against Tennessee could see just a lot of opportunities if they really do beat Tennessee handedly, which they very well might. Vegas definitely thinks that's a possibility. Scoring upside's decent there, so wouldn't be shocked if Bashal Tutin does have a solid week. And then Rachaad White, gonna fit at the bottom of this tier. I do think that he still keeps a role, and then you include the fact that we got Bucky Irving coming back from injury, might be less usage. Rachaad White could see still a decent amount of usage this week, so I'm willing to take a shot on that compared to now we're in the, I would just call this like the bad flex territory. Michael Carter, Sean Tucker are just kind of hanging out here. They might move down to the rankings. Same with like Bam Knight might end up moving down the rankings depending on exactly what happens with those guys coming back. They're kind of sitting here. But then Blake Corum against Carolina, that touchdown possibility is definitely there. Kamani Vidal coming back, first week back for Omarion Hampton. If that is the case, Kamani could still see an increased workload compared to what we had been seeing while Omarion Hampton was healthy. Emmanuel Wilson could see a little bit of an increased workload with Josh Jacobs coming back from injury and with how well he performed, so wouldn't be absolutely shocked if he were to get some opportunities, just like some of these other guys as well. So that's why they make it there. And then we're just in absolute desperation territory here. Brashard Smith, Nick Chubb, Justice Hill, Ollie Gordon, Jeremy McNichols, Chuba Hubbard, Jordan Mason. yeah, something could happen for one of these guys, but probably not going to happen. And then, don't play these guys. Isaiah Davis, Ray Davis, not going to be good plays. Alvin Kamara, Amari DeMarcado, Hassan Haskins, all not being ranked currently, so we will see if any of them end up getting ranked by the end of the week. But there are your running back rankings. So thank you very much for tuning on in. Have yourself a wonderful day and enjoy your Thanksgiving with family, friends, etc.